Oh, righty. Today we are doing a rerun of personal possessive pronouns, all forms of it. But before we get into that, what was it again? Well, in sentences, sometimes we use names and sometimes we use pronouns. Pronouns in English are the words like I and he, but also me and them, and so on and so forth. There are different forms for pronouns depending on where in the sentence you use it. Consider the sentence, I love him, and then look at the sentence, he loves me. The I is still the same person, whether it's I or me, and the him is still some kind of boy. But in the first sentence, I is the subject, and in the second sentence, the I has become an object, and all of a sudden the form changes into me. Same goes for he. In the second sentence, it's a subject, it's he. But if it's an object, like in the first sentence, then it's him. So basically, when you have to figure out which personal pronoun to use somewhere, you have to figure out the function in the sentence first. Is it a subject or is it an object? If you're not sure what those words mean, subject means onderwerp in Dutch, and object leidend voorwerp en meewerkend voorwerp. The other thing that's in this category, because we quite often combine them when we do these assignments, are possessive pronouns. Those are words like my, so indicating that an I figure owns something. So if we look at the word I, the subject form is I, the object form is me, and the possessive form is my. So each personal pronoun that we can think of has all of these forms. We're going to start with the subject forms because those are the basic forms, really. So here we go. And I've made little lists for you, and it might be wise to copy them into a notebook. However, bear with me for a second. I'll go over them, and then at the end, I'm going to show you a full overview, so that will be easier to copy. So the subject forms first, and you know them from when we studied verbs. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they. They were, in Dutch, they were ik, jij, hij, zij, het, wij, jullie, en zij, meervoud. So hopefully you remember that. Let's go on to the object forms because that's a little bit more interesting already. So when we are dealing with object forms, then the list is me, you, him, her, it, us, you, and them. So for instance, think of sentences because I find that makes it a lot easier to remember it. Hitting is always a good one. Say I'm hitting. If I hit myself, it's I hit me. If I hit you, it's I hit you. If I hit that guy over there, it's I hit him. If it were a girl, I hit her. If it were a robot, I hit it. If I'm hitting myself and someone else, I hit us. If I'm hitting those two people over there and I'm talking to them, I'm saying I hit you. And if it's those people over there in the distance somewhere, I hit them. So if you use it in a sentence, it usually makes more sense for me anyway. Makes it easier to remember. If that doesn't make it easier at all, then you're going to have to remember the list and just study the list. Let's carry on with the possessives. So those are the ones that you use when you own something or someone owns something. These are what we call the dependent form. So these are used before a noun. And there are more forms of it, but those are for next year. So let's look at it again. Again, in order, we have my, so my love, your love, his, her, and its love, our love, your love, and their love. The last one is probably the hardest one, the word their, because there are more words that sound like this, but the possessive one is spelled like that with T-H-E-I-R. Let's make this into a full overview because that's going to be far more useful, I think. There you go. I've written down the subject form on the left, then the object in the middle, and then the possessive always on the right for each of the forms. I suggest that you put me on pause for a second, copy the list into your notebook, and then start me again. So put me on pause for a second. Okay, I think you've probably copied it. Let's now go on to some practice. And in particular, let's start with how to do this. So you are faced with a sentence or a little text like the one over there. And now you need to decide what to put where. First thing you need to do is always, read the text a little bit so you can know what it's about. There will always be clues in the context what you need to fill in. So this text is apparently about Susan and John. And the second sentence is talking about some people, because it's plural, that are walking the dog. As Susan and John have just been introduced, I'm going to assume it's about them. Um, the sentence, the gap that I need to fill in is in the subject position. It's at the start of the sentence. It's before the verb. That all indicates, oh, subject. Okay. The subject that I would use for Susan and John is they, plural, right? And there are people over there. I'm not invested in it at all. I'm not talking to them. I'm just describing them. In Dutch, you would probably use zij meervoud for this. If that's the case, fill in they because it's a subject form. Then we go on reading on to the next bit. So look at Susan and John. They are walking the dog. Dog is really cute. So the dog was introduced. This is Susan and John's dog. So we need to say that they have a dog. That means that we need to use a possessive here, right? We're talking about ownership. They own the dog. They were a day, and the possessive of day is there with Their. So their dog is really cute. In the last sentence, we are all talking about something that we love. We all really love probably the dog. I'm going to assume that we all really love the dog. If that's the case, we refer back to it with it because animals are an it. It's in the object position. It comes after the verb. Who do we love? What do we love? Oh yeah, object, it. So it. Say it had been about Susan and John because you interpreted it differently, then you would have to use them here, but at least still an object form. Sometimes when there's lots of gaps in text like this, it's very unclear what it's referring to, and then both them and it would be fine, right? As long as you use the object form. Okay, time for you to practice a little bit yourself. Here are 5 sentences. You may use subject forms, object forms, and possessives. Pause me for a bit so you can think. Write it down because you need to check your spelling as well. All right, good luck. You've started me again, so I assume that you're done. Let's go into the answers. Okay, so in our first sentence, Jane is introduced. Jane is a girl, and in where the gap was there, the gap was at the start of the sentence before a verb in the subject position. So we used a pronoun for that, and that's she. She likes to play footy. That sounds like a really good sentence. In the second sentence, there was a gap, then a noun, name is Jess, and I'm 10 years old. Apparently, this is a person who's introducing themselves because she says, I am 10 years old. So that means that we need to use my here. My name is Jess, and I'm 10 years old because I am introducing myself with my name, not someone else. Then in 3, last time Jack saw her, she was wearing a wig. It's her because the gap is after a noun, after a verb in the object position. And I know it was a girl because it's specified in the second sentence, bit of the sentence, she was wearing a wig. So we use her. In 4, I think there are 2 options. We should mention that we're walking about somewhere. Oh, if we could just find, and then someone's car, right? And it's probably either our car if we own the car together, or maybe it's my car. Actually, now that I'm talking about it, it could be your car as well. But it's definitely a possessive. Um, and then we could go. We recognize it's possessive because the dot 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 was right before a noun. That really helps for me. And a noun is a zelfstandig naamwoord, right? Mr. Brown is their teacher. So there is a guy involved here, Mr. Brown, a he, and they, whoever they are, often text. And then a gap. So after the verb, in the object position, so they often text Mr. Brown, which means they often text him if we're using a personal pronoun. Okay, so that's the whole thing. It's tricky because you have to think about the position and function in the sentence. And you need to know the forms really well. Sometimes there's just more than one solution as well, especially when we're dealing with short sentences. You really kind of need context before you can judge what to use. Okay, practice materials I'm sure will be provided by your teacher. Otherwise, there's loads on the internet, and I'll try and post something below in the comments box as well. For now, time for the end screen. There we go. Remember, never stress. Learn from your mistakes, learn from each other, always ask your questions and speak as much English as you can. And maybe perhaps if you have some time left today and you want to give us some love, you could subscribe to our channel. Okay, bye bye.